Welcome to the deep dive. I want you to think about the first hour of your day.
Okay.
Maybe you roll over, grab that phone, or like automatically start the coffee machine. It's this ritual, right? You do it without really thinking. It feels fast, efficient.
Smooth.
Exactly, smooth. And I think sometimes deep down, we kind of confuse that feeling, that momentum with actual freedom. Like, I'm doing this well, so I must be in control.
Yeah, and what's fascinating really is that the smoothness, that very fluency you're talking about, that's often the signal that it isn't a conscious choice.
Okay.
That whole sequence, the automatic scroll, the sigh maybe, the exact moment you get up. That's probably the execution of a script.
A script.
Yeah, like a subroutine. It's this piece of software kind of written deep into your nervous system. It just runs. No conscious effort needed.
And
think of it like the emotional firmware of your life.
okay, firmware. That's a pretty radical idea. We need to unpack this because we all believe we're the authors, right?
Yeah.
Every morning, making choices. So the mission today for you listening is maybe to shift our focus completely. Stop looking at the drama of the actions of shoulds and shouldn'ts.
Right.
And look instead at these sort of silent, invisible forces that actually structure those actions. We want to figure out how much of what you call your life is just running this script. And where does real choice, like untethered choice, even begin? So to understand the script, I guess we have to start at the foundation, like how we perceive things moment to moment.
Exactly. Perception is key.
Okay, so imagine you're walking down the busy street, you hear, I don't know, bits of conversation, a siren, then maybe, for a split second, a tiny bird singing.
Yeah.
But almost instantly, your mind pulls back, right? Your internal stuff, your to-do list, maybe a worry, and poof, the bird sound is gone. It vanished.
But the bird didn't stop singing.
No, it just slipped into the background.
And that simple everyday thing, it shows the fundamental law of perception. We don't experience objective reality, not really.
What do we experience then?
We experience what our selective attention lets us attend to. And here's the crucial part. That attention, it's not neutral, it's sculpted. It's biased by these old, deep patterns we mistake for just instinct.
Okay.
This brings us to the figure ground dynamic. It's a core Gestalt idea about how we organize reality.
Right, figure ground.
Right,
the figure is the obvious thing, the thing you notice, like the light in a dark room, or that bird song you actually heard for say.
Precisely, that's the figure, and everything else just fades into the ground.
And the ground is everything else.
Everything else. The vast, unnoticed context, the feel of the floor under your feet right now, the hum of your fridge, your history, your cultural assumptions, those fears you don't talk about, unspoken loyalties. It's all the baseline stuff.
Okay, so here's where my head starts spinning a bit. If our awareness locks onto the figure, the choice we think we're making, but that figure just pops out from a ground we never consciously chose, where's the agency? It sounds like you're saying the ground sets the stage before the actor even walks on. Is that just fatalism? Are we just puppets running a program?
That's the critical question, isn't it? It's not really fatalism, it's more like deep conditioning. The choice feels free because we're only aware of the figure.
Okay.
But imagine if that ground is built on, say, a deep fear of rejection. Well, then the only figures, the only choices that feel possible are the ones that minimize rejection risk.
I see.
So the field, the ground, it shapes the outcome unless you turn your attention to the structure of the field itself. Real choice isn't picking a different figure from the same old menu. It's about shifting the ground.
Let's make this more concrete. Bring it down to human behavior, because that difference between real choice and just structural inevitability, that feels key.
Yeah.
Think about the person who always says yes. You know the type. They might tell themselves, I'm just being kind or adaptable, supportive. And they're often really good at it.
Yeah.
Very functional.
Yes, highly functional. But if you watch closely, sometimes you see these tiny physical tells, right?
Like what?
Maybe a flicker of anxiety in the eyes, or the breath held just a bit too long before they agree. That smile that lands just a fraction of a second late, like it's pasted over something else.
The internal conflict.
Exactly. The inner story is, I choose kindness. But the body's reality might be, I absolutely cannot risk the tension of saying no.
So for them, no just isn't.
Yeah.
It's not a real option. It doesn't even show up as a possibility.
Precisely. In their perceptual field, no feels like it would cause a rupture, like a threat of total collapse, maybe abandonment. Their whole system organizes itself to avoid that feeling.
Wow.
So yes emerges, not really as a free choice of generosity, but as the only figure that seems viable against that ground of terror.
That's quite something. So he's not free, he's just fluent.
Exactly. Fluent.
Fluent in appeasement, fluent in kind of self-erasure. And that fluency is scary because it feels like strength, doesn't it? It feels like choice. Until you realize you've forgotten how to speak any other way.
That perfection in executing the pattern completely masks the compulsion underneath. We see expertise and we assume it must be choice. And you see the same dynamic maybe with the woman who always leaves relationships, before she can be left.
Right, she frames it as independence, autonomy, I am in control.
She narrates it that way. But if you trace the pattern back, often there's this silent, learned rule from way back.
Right.
Attachment leads to abandonment. So any hint of closeness, dependency, it trips an internal alarm.
So her leaving isn't really a choice either.
It often functions as an inevitability, a reflex. It's like the compulsive need to complete an old, unfinished shape, an old story. Her system just can't tolerate staying because the field is organized around that protective but ultimately isolating law.
This is maybe the silent tragedy of the modern self, you could say.
Yeah.
Mistaking this perfect repetition of a pattern for our actual identity. Explaining why we do things, narrating our choices. That's not the same as authorship, is it? It's just reading the script aloud.
Oh, got it. Okay, to really deepen this dive, we need to look at the underlying structure. Let's call it the perceptual field.
The perceptual field.
Okay, it's the total context, right? Mind, body, environment, history, everything. Your actions aren't just random impulses, they're emergent behaviors. They arise dynamically from this field.
Yeah, and what drives the compulsions within that field?
That's where gestalts come in.
Gestalt. So for anyone not familiar, that's not just a shape, right? It's more like
Yeah.
a pattern-seeking completion.
Exactly. A form, a situation, an experience that inherently seeks closure, like an unresolved chord in music, It creates tension until it resolves.
Okay.
And if that pattern, that gestalt, stays incomplete, if the tension isn't expressed, acknowledged, resolved, it just hangs around, it lingers in the ground.
It distorts things.
It distorts the entire field, and that leads directly to these automatic, compulsive, often frustrating behaviors we see.
Can you give a concrete example? How does this play out?
Sure. Take procrastination. We usually frame it as laziness, right? Or bad time management.
Guilty.
But often it's actually the field protecting itself from a deeper perceived threat. Let's say the underlying unfinished gestalt is something like, the shame of failure is unbearable.
Yeah.
Well, then a protective mechanism kicks in to close that emotional loop. If I try and fail, I confirm I am worthless. So the field, seeking the least painful closure available, decides it's safer to simply not try.
Wow. So procrastination isn't the problem, it's the solution. A protective solution.
It's the compulsive behavior that temporarily resolves the underlying threat of shame. It closes the loop, albeit in a way that causes other problems.
That completely reframes things like bad habits. They're not moral failures, they're actually perfect, if damaging, completions of unfinished emotional business.
They're seeing the pattern.
So the people pleaser is completing the sentence. If I make them happy to...
Don't leave me.
Yeah.
Exactly. The action is driven by that structural need for closure.
I like that visual you mentioned earlier, the stretched rubber band. Every unexpressed feeling, every suppressed desire, every unmet need. It's like a rubber band stretched tight, constantly vibrating in the background, in the ground.
Yes. And that tension is always there, subtly warping our perception of what's possible, what feels safe, what choices seem available.
Which leads us right back to the paradox of willpower.
Yeah.
If I hate my job and I try to force myself, apply for 5 new jobs, grit my teeth.
Why does it usually feel so draining, so temporary?
Because trying to be different, trying to force a new behavior,
Yeah.
that's still just a fit. You're emerging from the same old stretched ground.
Yeah.
You're trying to fight the tension of the rubber band by focusing only on the endpoint. You're trying to edit the script while you're still performing on the same stage, same set design, same underlying fear driving the plot.
It's exhausting because you're using surface energy against structural energy.
Precisely. True, lasting change isn't about forcing new behavior onto the old blueprint. It requires seeing and eventually shifting the structure, the field itself. Okay, so if sheer effort, if willpower, usually fails because it's working at the wrong level.
Yeah.
And the script is written so deep, like firmware. Where's the gap? Where does real choice, real freedom actually begin?
The gap isn't found in trying harder, it's in a different kind of shift altogether. We could call it perceptual insight.
Perceptual insight, what is that?
It's not analysis, it's definitely not about fixing yourself or the problem. It's that moment when the ground, the invisible structure, the pattern suddenly rises up and becomes the figure. It becomes visible.
How does that happen?
It often happens through contact. Real, unfiltered, unmediated presence with sensation right here, right now, in the body.
This sounds like the story of Daniel. You mentioned him before. Hated his job for years, right? Complained, updated the resume, but just couldn't leave.
That's right, 5 years stuck.
Why couldn't he quit? What was the block?
Because for Daniel, in his perceptual field, the idea of leaving wasn't just about finding a new job. It felt like a void, a total collapse of identity. His system, organized by this deep fear of the unknown, protected him by keeping him in the known misery. He tried to force himself, applied for jobs sometimes, but that rubber band just kept snapping him back.
So what finally broke the script? What changed?
It was something small, almost mundane. One afternoon, he's sitting in another pointless meeting.
We've all been there.
Right. And he wasn't thinking about quitting. He wasn't analyzing anything. He just noticed his body.
What did he notice?
He felt this intense, painful tension in his shoulders, real physical pain. He noticed how dry his mouth was, and he noticed his fingers just tapping compulsively on the table, like a countdown.
Okay. But why did that work, noticing physical stuff, when 5 years of thinking and trying hadn't?
Because the physical sensation is the language of the ground. The body holds a tension of the unfinished Gestalt, remember? The stretched rubber band lives in the body. So when he simply noticed that tension, that dryness, that tapping, without trying to fix it or judge it, the invisible structure that had been running his life, staying here is inevitable misery, but leaving is annihilation, suddenly became visible, objective.
It wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was something he could see, an observed structure.
Exactly. And once it was seen, once the ground rose fully into figure, the structure couldn't hold him in the same way. It lost its invisible power.
Did he quit right then?
No, not that day. But the feeling of inevitability was broken. The script had faltered. About 3 weeks later, he handed in his notice, and apparently it was easy, calm, none of the old anxiety that had plagued him for years.
So the first step toward freedom is stop trying to change the behavior, the figure.
Yes. Stop fighting the figure and start noticing the field. The ground, the deep realization is maybe. You're not the driver, you're the car. And the road. It was paved long before you were born.
Wow.
Acknowledging that, seeing that, that's the first real active choice.
Yeah.
Hashtag outro.
So that's the really radical insight we're kind of circling around today, isn't it? Freedom isn't about choosing differently from the limited automatic menu the ground offers up. It's realizing that you are the awareness itself.
Yeah.
The space in which the whole show, the figure, the chooser, the story, the automaton arises and plays out.
Exactly. And that awareness, that simple, non-judgmental witnessing, that's what allows for true, sustainable change. What we sometimes call creative adjustment.
Creative adjustment.
Yeah, it lets the field reorganize itself organically. From the inside out. You stop trying to grab the characters on the movie screen and change their actions.
Right.
And instead, you turn your attention to the projector that's casting the whole illusion in the first place.
Seeing the projector, not just watching the movie. I like that. Okay, so we want to leave you, the listener, with a provocative question this week, something to carry with you. What in your life right now feels absolutely completely inevitable? Not just, a boring chore, but something that feels so deep, so woven into the very fabric of who you are, that you barely even notice its shape anymore.
That thing. That's your ground.
So the invitation is turn toward it. Not necessarily to fix it or change it or fight it, just to see it clearly and just watch. Watch if the script starts to falter, even just a little.